Great. Do you think he can own the potential of being the upcoming author of even a little ebook like that?
Yes.
How does it feel?
We can do it, Maggie, and whether people are going to buy it.
Absolutely. Or, remember, books are not always about will they buy it? Books are about will they like, value and trust my message and me in order to become part of my tribe. So they might not pay money for that particular ebook, and you can use it as a lead magnet. We're going to go into what you can use that for now, that leads to selling your online course or that leads to something else. Make sense? So if you just put together that 4+2 booklet, there are many things that you could do with it or break it down into lots of little other things. So it could be a cheat sheet or a white paper. So that's kind of just a little PDF lead magnet that can help other people and build a relationship with an audience for you. It could be an ebook or an e-booklet. You could expand it to a full book if you wish to. It could be blogs. Like you actually came up there with 4 chapters with 3 headings and 1 story, 3 topics and 1 story in each one. So you've really got 16 blogs, haven't you? If you do 1 blog a month or 2 blogs a month, you've got 8 months of content. Just in 17 minutes, you're able to pull together 8 months of content. My golly. You've got a 3-part mini course as a lead magnet. One of the big funnels, and I'll show you an example of one that I did on Sunday, where I have a 3-part video series, and it's a free lead magnet that I offer out to practitioners that takes them through a process of looking at their business model like this. And at the end of it, I offer a conversation to talk about their business model, what they're looking for, and to find out if we're the right fit to work together. So what you've just written could be the content for a 3-part video series, couldn't it? There's many things that you could do with what you've just written. You could have it as a free webinar series to build an audience and build like, value and trust. You could turn it into a competition. You could do a quiz or questionnaire with it about what are the top 4, blah, 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 or there's a very easy system and structure to turn certain elements of topics and things into a 21, 22 question quiz. So like a questionnaire or a quiz. And quizzes are amazing lead magnets. I have a quiz called the Emotional Eating Solutions or Stress Eating Quiz. And when I promote that, I don't do it very often because I get so many leads. So many people want to do that quiz. And I've got something like, 4,000 people on my list that have done that quiz, just that quiz alone, because they love it. I then turned that into a stress quiz itself. So I adapted it from stress eating to just a straight out. So I looked at 7 topics of stress, and then I turned that into a quiz. When I promote that, oh my God, so many people. And then you nurture them once they're actually on your list from doing the quiz, you nurture them to provide them more content and build that like, value and trust. You could do audio tracks, meditation tracks with it based on those topics. You could do educational tracks. You could actually do an audio book, a little mini audio book, and promote it as a giveaway. You could do it as an actual real book and, sell it as a just pay postage. So it's I'll send the book out to you and you just pay postage. And that's a huge promotional avenue that a lot of the big digital marketers use now. Yes, Joy, can we have a mic over in the corner, please?
Just quick, I hate just paid postage.
Yeah.
I hate it. I'd rather say $11.99 postage included.
Great personal opinion.
Yeah,
some people love it.
I know.
But imagine if you did a quiz, a poll to your audience and asked them, how do you feel about just pay postage? And 60% of them said, yeah, I don't mind it. And 40% said, hate it. You just got to then make your choice around, do you want to attract the 60% or do you want to attract the 40%? It's just a decision that you make. You're with Joy? Yeah, absolutely. I don't like it, but some people do. And it works. If you look at the digital marketers, who knows ClickFunnels? Has everyone heard of ClickFunnels? ClickFunnels is a online funnel software developed by Russell Brunson and his team. And his book went viral with the free plus pay postage. Millions and millions and millions of books sold. Yep. And he's a multi-billionaire now with a free plus postage. I mean, other things, but yes. We have a question over here.
Yes, the just pay postage, is that a way just to say you've got so many books
Can you
sold?
speak into the microphone, please?
Is that a way to say you've got so many books sold? Because my feeling is that it would attract people who always want freebies.
Potentially. It really depends on the type of audience you're selling to and the message in your book. Excuse me. If it is just a way of selling more books, then you just got to own that and not be, ashamed of it or don't do it. So if that's the way you want to actually become a bestseller, which is the method a lot of authors will actually use to become a bestseller, to get the bestseller, you only have to sell a certain amount of books on a certain amount of day, in a certain amount of time on a particular day, to become a bestseller in a specific category on Amazon and stuff. So there's lots of ways to do it. But most people who use that don't actually do it through Amazon. They're actually doing it through their own systems. So most people that are using that don't actually use it to become bestsellers. They'll use it for a marketing ploy to build a big database fast. The 3 or 4 day challenge. Has anyone ever taken part in a 3 or 4 day challenge? Yep. Yeah? I do these very, very successfully with my Emotional Eating Solutions people. I have an online course called Emotional Eating Solutions. And it was actually the first online course I ever produced. And we actually did a huge successful funnel campaign where we just had a 5-day challenge, actually. It was a 5-day challenge where each day they would come on live with me on Facebook and they would work through, we would do a live therapeutic process to switch off sweet cravings one day, salty cravings the next day, starchy carbs the next day. Make sense? By day 5, you made an offer of, would you like to buy my Emotional Eating Solutions course? Yeah, if you got results here, blah, blah, blah. And we would have a 30 or 32% close rate just by doing the challenge because they had 5 days of experiencing your work and the methodologies. That they already knew how you worked. They knew your system already, and they either liked, valued, or didn't trust you by that point. Yeah? So a challenge is a great way to attract. And what you've just done with your 4+2 booklet there, you could very easily turn into each of your chapters could be a day of your challenge on that topic. Yeah. So many different things, and lots of others as well. So there's many, many. Do you see the potential of what you've just done in structuring a 4+2 booklet? Exactly. Awesome. Absolute awesome. And it can, besides all of that, it can simply be padded out to be an ebook or a paperback book as well. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit before we move on to the next topic about successes in publishing and not so successes in publishing. I'm going to talk to you about the first book that I ever did produce that nearly broke me, and the second book that I did produce that sold out, but that I will never let anyone see again. There are 2 copies in the world left, and they are secretly held in my own little hand right now. And nobody will ever see them again. So you are the privileged few that will ever see this book. These are the only 2 copies of this little booklet I ever have as well. And this was the biggest embarrassment of my life. And it nearly made me leave this industry altogether. I nearly left because of this booklet. It's called DIY Happiness. Be wildly happy and relaxed. And it was supposed to be a little kind of booklet with nice quotes that were our quotes. So there were actually, it was authored by my business partner at the time. We were doing workshops and things on the Gold Coast. And it was supposed to be a quick little fix for open it up at any point and you've got a DIY happiness tip to change a state, get you out of a funk. It cost $8,000 to produce. It was our last $8,000. And we both said, if this doesn't work, we are not destined to be in business together. We'd been trying for years. We produced it. It's a bloody good book. It's actually a fabulous book. But it turned up on the day of print, printed in reverse.
Oh, awesome.
So everything that was white ended up being black. Everything that is black ended up being white. So there are pages and pages of just black and white text that is really, really hard to read. And that's our opening page.
But that's not your mistake, is it? That's the publisher's.
It was the printer's mistake. But needless to say, we then had to fight to get our money back, which cost more to fight to get our money back than it did to actually produce it. And that was about, how long ago now? 12 years ago. So things were much more expensive in the publishing industry and things back then anyway. But it broke up our business partnership, which was the right thing to do in the long term, but was a complete disaster story. A simple little book like that. So we all make mistakes. Did I give up?
No. What a lesson.
What a lesson. If you have to. She wants to show some people at the back.
Yes, we wanted to see it.
What was that, sorry? In a much different, she realised she wanted to go down a much more corporate route, and I realised I wanted to go down a much more therapeutic route. And it was a good thing that it actually ended that way. But it didn't end well initially, because I pulled out going, this is just, we've spent our savings on this, and it's 2.5 years down the track and the business is still not taking off. We need to do something about this and get serious about it. And I wasn't willing to invest any more money in it. And so it didn't end well initially, and then we resolved it later on. But again, we both look back on it going, best thing we ever did was to actually go our separate ways. So it was a good lesson, okay? But it didn't stop me, because I was the kind of kid that used to write under the bed covers of a nighttime. I had a little torch and I would write and I would write and I would write. And sometimes I knew it wasn't coming from me. Sometimes I knew I was channeling. I didn't even know what channeling was back then, but I knew that I was meant to write. And so I persisted, and my next book was this book, Disaster 2. I wanted to call this book something else entirely, and not only did I want it, I believed the universe wanted it to be something else as well. And this book is an example of not listening to your own intuition and instinct. I actually was going through a very dark stage in my life and was terrified of being alone, and terrified not so much about being alone in a relationship. I was actually single and very happy about that, but alone in a space. And I wanted to face my fears and work out what was wrong, because I just felt empty inside. There was something inside me that knew something drastic was wrong. I'd studied psychology thinking that would try and sort out my stuff, that I'd get some answers there. That didn't help. And there was stuff going on inside me that was just really messy. And so I bit the bullet one week, and I hired a cabin up in the mountains, on Tamborine Mountains in Queensland. If you understood my fear of being alone, you would know that this was something. There was no internet, there was no phone service, there was no television there, barely had electricity, and I just went up there with a notepad and pen. I did take my laptop, and I went up there just to see what happened. I just wanted to call out to the universe and say, what the hell? I can't do this anymore. And I did. And I wrote, and this is actually what I said to the universe word for word. When I wept oceans. When I stopped, I found me. The journey to create this book began with a little magic and a desperate plea. And this is what I called out to the universe. I am ready, I cried out to no one there. I am ready to follow my heart. Help me find what I need to do to fill this emptiness and feel complete. Who am I? And I sobbed for hours because nothing came. No one spoke to me, no great wisdom came out of nowhere, no essence or God or anyone appeared to magically take my pain away. And I just sat there in this mountaintop cabin with, rustic as all whatever, and I had this little candle in the corner and I'm waiting for something to come and tell me it was all going to be okay. And nothing came. And I'm just sitting there. What the hell? And I cried and I cried and I cried, and I don't remember when, but I fell asleep. And I woke up at about 3:30 a.m. in the morning with this book being downloaded to me. And I wrote, literally, it was about 4 hours straight. I just wrote, and it was handwriting. So I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I remember getting up and having a coffee and trying to kind of stretch myself, and then the next section of it just started coming out of me. And so I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. 2 days later, I had this complete book. And I've never really changed much inside it, apart from one chapter that I was convinced should be the right thing to change. And that's why I will never show anyone this book, because that chapter should not be in there. The book was supposed to be called You as the Guru. Because the book is about going within and finding all the answers to all of the questions you've ever asked of yourself and the universe, and you have the answers. Everybody, back 12 years ago, whatever it was, said to me, no matter what you do not use guru in the title. Guru's a no-no word. Guru this, you'll never sell a book, you'll never do this, you never do that. And my publisher said, do not do it, and refused to publish the book unless it was published under a different title. And every ounce of me was going, but this is the title that's supposed to be. And I listened to everybody else instead. So I published the book as Wildly Happy and Wise. Yeah. And put the extra chapter in that they insisted was in there. And yes, I produced 1,000 copies and they sold quite quickly because I had an audience. But I was never proud of this book, because I was never true to its purpose and its meaning. I was never true to its title. I was never true to the outcome. So it changed the book. And I have actually rewritten it back under its original title and stuff, and I just haven't had the chance to publish it yet. And I will relaunch it without that extra chapter. And it's a bloody good book. But it's one that I'm not proud of. And I would never have reproduced it in that format again. I also learned, because I sent it away to India. Look at the colour. The cover was supposed to be vibrant and delicious. Does anyone find that vibrant and delicious? No. So I sent that away to India. Yes, it was about, I don't know, maybe back then maybe $1.80 a book or something to publish, including coming back to Australia and all of the taxes and things that had to be involved. But it's not a book that I was proud of. So did I stop? 2 disasters in a row. 2 disasters within a couple of years. Who would have given up at that point and go, publishing's not for me? Yeah. Something inside me said, keep going. And I did. For a while, I put publishing aside and I got busy in my practice. That's when I built up this big practice with 5 or 6 practitioners that I was contracting out to, and ended up in kidney failure in hospital and decided to rethink my whole business. Because my audience were asking me for a weight loss book and for an emotional eating book, I decided to actually focus on that book as my next big book. And 2 disasters turned into a pretty good success. This book wasn't even out yet. It was due to arrive within a couple of days, and I got a little article in the Sydney Morning Herald. It was only maybe, 50 words, 75 words. It was tiny. And the article was talking about this book and how it helped a woman lose half her body size. And I didn't think anything of it. It was a tiny article. I was living in Cairns at the time, and I got a phone call from the London Daily Mail. You never know who reads the stuff you put out there. The phone call from the London Daily Mail said, would your client be willing to be interviewed for the London Daily Mail? We've read your Sydney Morning Herald article. What do you think? And I went, I don't know, we can only ask her. So I rang her and I asked her, and she said, yeah, I think so, okay. I thought it was going to be another little article. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of emails from readers of the London Daily Mail, and they followed on for the next 7 to 10 days, and I still get them even today. A 3-page article, a 3-page feature appeared in the London Daily Mail in the female edition on this woman who lost over 80 kilograms using this book. This woman now works for me. She's my beautiful Trish. Those of you who've ever run my office, Trish is now, she started as a client, I don't know how many years ago now, and she now has worked for me now for about the past 7 years or so. This is Trish, yes. So Trish was the 3-page feature in the London Daily Mail. So you never know what failure can become the success. When you see the 2 books and you look at our little DIY happiness book alongside it, can you see the progress? Can you see what I learned from these 2 books to produce this book? If I'd given up because these 2 books were disasters for 2 different reasons, this would never have happened, and neither would the business that I now run today, which is very, very different to the business that I ran back then. And neither would I be saying that I'm about to reach 200 million people or 20 million people through 200 authors, yeah? If I'd stopped because these were failures. Same as in digital marketing. If your first digital funnel doesn't work, I've had plenty. How many of you had that haven't worked any? Stacks. Yeah? Then you brush yourself off, you learn what went wrong, and you get up and you do it again. If you are serious about being an author and an online course developer and a digital marketer. Because that's what it takes these days in order to produce an automated kind of income and reach more people, is learning how to do social media, learning how to be a digital marketer, and learning how to ask the right questions to outsource that to people if you need to. You can change your answer to none. We just won't believe you. So it isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about getting it right once. That leads to the potential of getting it right twice. That leads to the potential of getting it right again and again. Between this book and my Unleashed book, which has been very successful, I did other things. I did other ebooks and things that had success in their own right, a little bit here, a little bit there. But again, it's just continuing to continue on the path. If you've got a message and you feel inclined that you need to get that out there, it's deciding how important it is to you. And that's what I want you to think about tonight. Just decide how important it is for you to not only become an author, but build a business around being an author. And just ask yourself that. And there's no right or wrong question. If your answer is, it's not important enough for me, there's your answer. But if your answer is, it is important for me, and I do want to do that for the next stage of my career, then just think about what you might do with that 4+2 book. Deal? So nobody gets to see my secret little wildly happy and wise. You can look at it from a distance. So now you all want to see it, don't you? You're all going, oh, give it to me, give it to me. All right. Where's my little clicker? Did I leave it anywhere? Oh, thank you. So, any questions about what we've done so far with regards to your book or your topic or title or the mistakes we make in publishing and the successes? Nope. Fantastic. This is our beautiful Katina. You'll actually, if those of you are coming to, actually I must mention the Networking Nibbles. We've got, how many tickets do we know? Any left? 8 tickets left. If anyone is interested in the Networking Nibbles, then Katina will be there tomorrow as well. She's produced a book called Neurocounselling. This is a completely new therapeutic model that I helped her devise when she came to me and she said, I want to do a book, but she's passionate about counselling. She's a teacher in counselling, but she knew that counselling had lost its sexy. And she wanted to bring sexy back to counselling. And so we looked at her specialties, we looked at what she knew, we looked at all of the additional stuff she brought to counselling and realised that she loved the connection between neuroscience and how talk therapy can actually assist the process, whereas talk therapy had kind of been out of fashion for a little while. And she wanted to bring it back into fashion. So we devised a new topic completely called neurocounselling, where we brought the neuro of the neuroscience into the counselling, and she's branded that as her own now. And it's led for her to... she'd always wanted to go beyond teaching at TAFE and teaching counselling at colleges, and she wanted to take it into industry. She wanted to bring the sexy back to the industry itself, and she wanted to go. Her big thing was travel. She loved travel, and she wanted a business that allowed her to travel. And I said to her, well, get clear. Where do you want to travel? You know, travel could mean you want to go 2 blocks down the street and they pay for you to go there and talk, or do you want to actually go overseas, or do you want to go interstate? And she just got clearer and clearer on what she wanted to do. And the moment her book, before it actually even came out, she'd been asked to speak at a number of associations, and she's travelled to Perth, she's travelled to lots of other states to actually talk about her new model of counselling. And it's starting to bring in for her a whole new respect for that in the industry, and also for her has provided opportunities to produce her own workshops. She now has workshops around the topic, and she's partnered up with another business partner, done a joint venture where they're doing workshops around that as well. So it's opened up lots and lots of opportunities for her. So do you see how even a book can bring in your own... I'll come to... Anyone, can you just bring a microphone down to Brett? He's got a question there in a moment. So... even starting your own kind of therapeutic model, like my CPR brain training is my own therapeutic model. For Katina, for her, it was about introducing a new therapeutic model to her industry as well, and combining 2 industries. So she brought in neuroscience, combined it with hypnosis, combined it with counselling and talk therapy, and now she gets to speak at the psychological associations, the counselling associations, and it's taken her to that next level. Yes, Brett?
Just a free plug. The wonderful Katina will be speaking at the AHA workshop on the 1st of December at West Ryde. So go and check out the AHA website. If
anyone is part of the AHA, or even non-members can go to those events as well. Katina Gleeson will be speaking at West Ryde. What date? In which date is it?
Sunday the 1st of December.
Beautiful.
AHA?
Yes, AHA, Australian Hypnotherapy Association. And that's the 1st of December. So she's a sweetheart. You'll get to meet her tomorrow night if you are coming to the Networking Nibbles as well. So if you think about what we've gone through today, what's your biggest takeaway so far? Lulu?
I think my biggest takeaway is having a contribution. I think my biggest takeaway is that really resonates now is having my contribution, my mission, because I think that it's like a beacon light, something that will really sort of like a map for me to go to.
Yes. And keep refining that from today. Go back to it tonight, go back to it tomorrow, and you'll just begin to resonate with it more and more. But that's, who feels that? Who feels like having a contribution gives what you're doing the purpose to connect to, the purpose to actually shift into the state, to keep yourself connected to the outcomes? It's a great motivator as well. So, if you've ever procrastinated on stuff or you let that little tail end voice get in the way of your outcomes, then when you just do that contribution statement, it puts you in the state that says, I'm ready to do this. Did we have another question there at all? Any other takeaways from today so far? So if we think back into what we've learned about titles and the structure.
The book structure, how to write that.
Yep. So we've got here a question. So one of your takeaways was about the book structure itself. So clarifying the topic. What is it about the topic for you and clarifying that process that made it easier?
Well, it just made it so simple. I didn't think that I'll be able to even think about writing a book right now, but I can start thinking about it. I still feel a bit afraid about it, but there's hope.
And because you didn't think there was a possibility that you could do it, and now that you've got a little 4+2 structure, how do you feel about that? What do you think you might do with it? Even if it's not a book, what might it do to help your business?
Well, I wanted to work on doing workshops and doing webinars, and I thought I'd need the experience to start there. I didn't know how to start, what to do, and I actually can start just, with having that structure to start writing and putting into organised way of thinking about it.
And what you've clearly got there, even if the first step for you is webinars, and I think that's how Joy started as well. Joy did what I call, when we go tomorrow through the online course structure, we look at the sell before you buy model versus the buy before you sell model. And you've got a little 4+2 structure there for a sell before you buy. You could actually do a 4-part webinar series, and all of a sudden you've actually got a product to sell. Just by spending 17 minutes getting your genius out of your head. Hello.
Yep.
Well done.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any ahas, breakthroughs?
Well, my biggest aha is that the book is the centre of the business model, and also that it doesn't mean that word, that phrase, working smarter, but it's really just working easier.
Yes.
So it's really just having flow and ease, and it doesn't mean that stepping up means just hyperventilating and losing fun and joy in your life. So it's just having fun. So I would go ease and grace and just go.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's about when you have a clear plan. Before, if we just know we want to write a book, or we just know we want to do an online course, or we just know we want to work smarter, but we don't have a plan or a system to do that, then we kind of flounder for a while and nothing ever changes. But if we use the book as a plan to build a structure around, all of a sudden we have a purpose to change the business, a reason why and a how to change the business to the model that we want. Excellent. Alrighty, so let's look a little bit about writing your book. Remember, you are not an editor. Your job is not to edit your book to perfection, as any perfections out there will try and do. I think my first book, this had about 13 edits before it eventually went out there, and look what happened. Yeah? So our job is not to be an editor. Our job is to be a creative author who is getting your message out there to the world. And you are not meant to be an editor unless you've trained in editing and you're a specialist in grammar and English. Yes, some of you are, some of you are not. Your job is not to be that. Your job is to get your creativity out of your head and structure it so that it makes sense to people. They get their ahas, they get their movements, they get their shifts. Your job is to bring the structure and the personality, the story, to the content. Make sense? Your expertise, or interview. If you don't want to write a book yourself, or you don't think you yet have the experience or the expertise to do it, then interview other experts. You interview 12 experts, you become the 13th expert. Because you then become the person that is relating to them at their level. That's what podcasters are taught to do. Podcasters, when they launch their podcast, they're taught, go and interview lots of experts in that field, and you become the expert now. You're the one commenting on the experts. You're the one bringing the experts to the audience. And so that's what a podcaster does, don't they? They just interview people, and they bring that expertise to the table.
You don't pay for the interviews?
Most of them don't, no. So she was asking, do they pay for the interviews? No. Most of them, it's a free interview and you don't get paid for them, and most of them will offer you the digital recording so you can use it as a promotional tool. Most of them are then using it to promote their own business, so they'll brand it themselves and it's put out there for years. I did a podcast years ago with an American girl, and I still today, maybe 7 or 8 years later, she's using my material, all branded as her own, on Twitter, and it's just constantly going out there with her lead magnet, but it's my content. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you have to be careful. You learn as you go. When you get invited on these podcasts, you've got to do your research and find out, are they genuine? Where's their audience? How big is their audience? And are they going to, their authenticity? Maybe having a look at a couple of other people they've interviewed to look at how they treated those interviewees and make sure they were treated with respect and things as well.
Oprah Winfrey became an expert in self-development like that. She kept on interviewing people, and now she wants to do the same.
That's the model that Oprah Winfrey used, isn't it? She's the expert interviewer. And now she's seen as a global expert because she used that expertise model. So it works, and it builds your profile. A good editor polishes your book and makes it shine. You don't have to do that unless you want to and unless you've got the skills to do it. Writing tools and tricks. Traditionally, people think they have to sit down to write, correct? So you think, I need to write a book. So you sit yourself down and then you go, no inspiration, what am I going to write on? If you're clever, you'll have used your contribution statement to get yourself into the right frame of mind, and you'll have looked at your 4+2 structure and decided where you were going to focus your intent that day on the writing. One of the ways that I've written quite a few ebooks was actually by speaking my book into my iPhone. So we've all now got Android phones, haven't we? Most of us, 99% of us have an Android phone, and all of them have the capacity for you to actually speak and record into them. And some people find it easier to think about their topic or look at their book structure and then speak about that and record it and get it transcribed. Some people find it even easier. I did one book where I actually had a friend interview me she's actually an ABC radio interviewer. And we went out for coffee, and I said to her, I want to write a little book on this, and I want you to interview me as if I was being interviewed on your radio station again, and I want you to let me record it so that I can just get it transcribed, and would you be willing to do that for me? And she said, hell yeah, let's do it. So we went out, we had a couple of lovely hours together. She interviewed me about the topic. I got that transcribed, and I had I think it was about a 16,000-word ebook, just like that. Took a couple of hours to edit the content. So it doesn't have to be as hard as we think it's going to be. That's kind of the message I want you to think about. If you are traditionally not a writer and you traditionally think that you can't write, then think about it as creating content rather than writing. And there are multiple ways to create content nowadays, true? Other transcription services, there's Rev.com. I know that Annie has another one you use that's even cheaper than, you mentioned it last time. I can't remember what it's called.
It transcribes from video. It's
Temi.
Yeah.
T-E?
T-E-M-I.
T-E-M-I transcribes from video. That's another service. Rev.com is about $1 per minute. It's about $1 for transcription services, and it's actually quite accurate. It's quite good. There's another one called GoTranscribe.com, Go-Transcribe. It's about 80 cents or 75 or 80 cents, or you can buy packages. So I think I bought a package of about 30 hours, and that just stays on for life, and I just keep sending my audios or my videos to it, and they get transcribed. Okay? But there's lots of other, even cheaper transcription services if you do your research out there. Interviewing others. This is something that Juanita did. Juanita, who's doing the Is It a Habit or an Addiction book? she actually kept saying, you know, am I really the expert? Am I really the expert? And once we got through the fact that she was, and she has, you know, she's treated thousands of clients with cocaine addiction, gambling addiction, smoking and alcohol, you name it, she's treated them for it. And once we got through that and she realised she said, you know what, I actually want to interview, not because I feel like I have to pad my book out. I want to interview people from major addiction services that people know commercially, and I want to get their opinion of the story and bring in multiple aspects to it. And so she's done that. She's actually interviewed 3 or 4 people to add to the credibility of her book. How exciting is that? But you can do the whole book as an interview process. And of course, have somebody interview you like I did with Mary Lou. I got her to interview me. And if you've got the gift of the gab and you know that it just flows when you instinctively get asked about your topic and you find that you can just, you know, you're a bit of a talker, then that interview style is actually a useful way to then get transcribed. Who thinks that they would use something like any of those techniques? Or are you a traditional sit down and write? Yeah, I do a bit of both. You don't have to choose one way, but I can, some days I just feel like writing, or I've decided I've set aside 4 or 5 hours and I traditionally just sit down and write. I use a contribution statement and I get into it. Other days I actually feel like I need it to flow more effortlessly, or I'm not in the flow if I'm writing. I move to an interview model if that's the case, or a recording model where I'll actually just start talking. Or I might do a live. Who's doing lives on social media at the moment? A couple of you? Occasionally, yeah, you've done 1 or 2. What I might do, if I'm stuck on a topic and I really don't know where I'm going with it, I'll actually just go and do a live where I do a therapeutic process. So part of my CPR brain training is I have a control strategy where I help people switch off the neural pathways that are causing the problem. So thoughts, emotions, sensations. So I will take that topic and I will go and do a live therapeutic process on Facebook. And then I will talk about that for 4 or 5 minutes afterwards, get that transcribed. Not only do I have an instant blog, as well as the video to go with the blog, so a vlog, but I also then have a potential chapter for a book that I was stuck on, because I chose the topic that I was stuck on. And I just let myself talk myself out of it and into it. Does that make sense? So if you have that gift and you feel comfortable doing lives or doing videos, or if you don't want to go live, record it just on your own camera for yourself and get it transcribed and see if it makes sense. See if you can turn it into, massage it into something. I just want you to look at different ways that you can think about writing a book. A ghostwriter. Now, a really good ghostwriter can cost you between $20,000 or $25,000, sometimes more, depending on who they are. There's a couple where I live that charge around that price. But, you know, there are people on social media and on websites like Upwork, and for those of you that aren't using it, it's an outsourced website, upwork.com, and other sites like that where you can actually hire a ghostwriter for a lot less than that. Again, quality is important, so you need to get some sample writing. There's people on LinkedIn who specialise in offering their writing services out for you as well. So they'll interview and turn that into an actual article or a booklet as well. So just think about how you want to approach the writing process, or whether you want to do it traditionally, or a combination. The interview style, that's actually very popular. The case study style is very popular as well, where you actually just string a number of case studies together with permission from the people that you're writing about, or changing so much about them that no one would recognise who they are, and then you become the commentary that links them together. So that's another easy way to pull a book together with great content, especially if it's a business-to-business, a therapeutic model that you're working with other practitioners and educating other practitioners with. Other practitioners love to know, how did you do that? They love to know case studies. So how did you do that? And what was the next step you did? And then what was the next step you did? Storytelling. The high, low, high. It's so important, if we are telling a story, that we start with something that's uplifting, and then this happened, so we show them the pain point, and we always end with the uplifting point. And so when you're doing your case studies or your stories in your 4+2 book, I want you to think about that high, low, high. We always need to end on the high. We always need to end where you're taking the person to the outcome that they want from your book. Yep.
Why don't you just do low high?
You start with a high because you want to grab their attention. And unless it's, so say for instance, when I did an article on the stroke that I had and I wrote it for industry, I did actually start on a confusion and a question about a low. So this point, the date was 2005. So I've kind of, with curiosity, already grabbed attention. It was the day that changed my life forever. So I've grabbed the attention with curiosity, and it was a low point, but I used curiosity to take the reader there first. Does that make sense? So the curiosity is the high anyway, even though I was starting on a low. That's the key. There's a great website. I hope I put it in here, actually. I did. referralcandy.com/blog/storytelling-formulas. That link will take you to a whole list of different structures of writing stories, from the Pixar model of, kind of fairy tale Pixar kind of storytelling, right through to, high, low, highs, lots of different ways to tell a story. And it's a great resource if you go and have a read. It's quite long and quite detailed, but it's a great resource if you go and have a look at it to get an idea of the type of story you might want to write. How do you want to approach storytelling in your book? But I promise you, if you don't have stories in there, if you don't have the human element, then you will run the risk, unless it's an academic book for a particular academic outcome, you'll run the risk for the end user of them not finishing your book. They need to be taken through an emotional journey if it's for the end user. Does anyone need any more time to write that link down?
I have a question about the notes thing. What is it? Google Notes?
Just notes in your iPhone. If you go to Notes, there's a record button underneath it.
Not Android.
In Android as well, yeah, absolutely. And so you just press that microphone and you can speak into it, and it just records and transcribes it immediately into the written word.
The voice recorder doesn't do that.
No, it's in Notes. It'll be, for some people it's called Memos, for some people it's something else, depending on whether you've got Android or iPhone. But if you search around, and he's got...
There's rev.com, we've got an app that you do it directly.
Okay, great. So you can do it through an app with rev.com, rev.com, or you can do it on your phone. Dragon, naturally speaking, it can be a little bit clumpy. The first version of that actually blew up my computer. It was a big piece of software. But yeah, the current version is not too bad, actually. But for free, I'm trying to think of free things that you already have. If you have an Android or an iPhone, there is a facility in your notes section to record, and it will transcribe immediately for you.
And it gets more and more accurate with your voice. And
it gets used to you, yes.
You can send it to yourself, email, and you've got this huge document. So sometimes I'll walk on the beach and I'll go blah, 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 blah. And I just get home and it's in my email box and it's pages of thoughts and just great. And it gets clear.
I might actually get you to do that and just take you through that.
But yeah, so the best thing about the notes, this is iPhone though, is you can walk along the beach and talk to yourself. The more you use it, the more accurate it picks up your enunciation and intonation. And then you can just shoot yourself an email and it's just all dumped into the email, and then you can just copy it into a Word document. So it's really great. So, and then the latest feature that I absolutely love with it is that you can break all of this into ticks, so dots and ticks. And you can, if you're like me and you like to cross things off, you can keep a running list of all that you're working on, but then just tick it off as well and put a line through it even. Oh. Yeah. No, but I found it for clients on Samsung. So,
the facility on Samsung is there as well. Yeah. I actually use it sometimes if I need to write up copy for a new ad. I'll actually just go for a walk, and if I'm stuck on it and I'm really not sure, not getting anywhere, I'll actually just talk my way through the pain points, the outcomes, the solutions, the high, low, high, because everything needs to have a story. and then I'll go home and I'll email that to myself, and I'll go home and edit it together. So it's a very useful, quick tool. But again, if you don't want to use those sorts of things, rev.com is just as easy as well. And as Annie said, now you can actually download the app and do it directly to it as well. Okay? So, yes, I want you to spend 5 minutes before we close. We've got about 20 minutes left for the day. I just want you to take 5 minutes of this with a partner. And I want you to think about some of the stories you've written in your 3+1 model there, and I want you to see if you can take them through an experience of high, low, high. So I'll give you an example. If we talked about the 2005, it was the day that changed my life. So I started on a curiosity note for high, and then I went to that day changed my life both clinically, as far as my career is concerned, and personally in the focus towards myself. It was the day that I woke up in hospital after having had a major stroke. Yeah? So all of a sudden we had high curiosity, low, oh my God, she's in having a stroke. So then we go through a little bit of a journey of how the recovery of the stroke and seizures, I'm now epileptic, all of the stuff that's all of the low, and then we bring it up to the ending, which is the high of what I learned from that experience and the gains that I gained from that. What I learned from that experience was I developed my CPR brain training to heal myself. To recover from the stroke, I studied neuroscience, I studied epigenetics, I studied all of the things I needed to do to recover from a stroke. And I now have a global business based on that recovery. Yeah? So that's a pretty big high. So I want you to think about how might you weave that magic into just one of your stories for now. And as you're writing it over the next few days as well, is just think about how can you bring that rhythm and that kind of music and that energy to your stories as you write them? Because we want to take people on a journey, don't we? We don't just want to lecture at them. We want to get them actively involved. So find a partner and try and make it somebody you don't know, who doesn't know much about your story. And I want you each to take 5 minutes and talk about one high, low, high that you might include in your book and then share with the other. Just start making your way back to your seats. When you're ready, bring that to a close.
Yes! Yes. I said yes. Yeah. Y-E-S, yes. Yes. Yes.
Are we moving back?
100% yes. Yes. Yes.
Bring your stories to a close. Come back to your seats now.
Yes. I said yes. Yeah. Y-E-S, yes. 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 100% yes.
All righty. 100%.
Yes.
Bring the story to a close. Coming back to your seats now. We've only got 10 minutes left. We've got a little bit to get through. Who did you meet? Aww. Part of the joy about these weekends, this kind of stuff, is actually getting to know other practitioners and other... Yeah, it is great about connecting. Come on, everyone, back to your seats, please. What did we learn about telling a story? Anyone have anything they wish to share? Have we got a mic runner ready? Just in the corner here. There was one right in front of me. Okay.
Talking? I didn't think I had a story.
Oh! What?
I said to the girls, well, my story's not like yours. I really don't have a story. And I went, blah, 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 and I said, wow.
That's a story.
I've just found out I have a story.
How cool is that? Woo! We've got here and over here, and then the lady at the back down here as well.
What we realised, my partner and myself, that the story was very emotional and it stays with us, and it actually can lead us to our passion as well.
Absolutely it can. Here. Over here, and then back on this side we had somebody as well.
It needs to be authentic.
Absolutely.
Needs to be meaningful and authentic, because as we've just talked about, it means that we then go on to do something that is our passion, but it only comes from that authentic place. And if we try to tell a story that was something about someone else and make it our own, it's not going to sit well.
Yep.
So it's got to be authentic.
Yeah, if we tell a story about someone else, it has to be for a purpose. It has to be very authentically open that it's about somebody else, and there's a reason why you're telling it. Make sense? And we had a lady down the back here.
I think with sharing stories, there's a real connection and just that deep connection, I think, of listening and hearing and that resonance.
Yeah. You have a bond for life. When you've shared a story with someone, they remember that you've shared that story, and more importantly, you remember that you've unloaded that story with somebody as well. And when we're sharing stories, lots of stuff is happening. It's a human trait that whilst you're listening to somebody else, or whilst you're listening to a story, or watching a fairy tale, or reading a book, you're actually putting yourself in the shoes. Your brain automatically does it. You put yourself in the shoes of what's happening in the story. So your brain's trying to find out, where do I fit in this story? Am I the protagonist? Am I the hero or the heroine? Am I the villain? You're trying to find out where you fit. And it's a human trait. So your readers, if you don't put stories into your chapters, they're not getting a chance to connect with you. They're not getting a chance to actually relate to you as a storyteller, relate to your book as more than a self-help book or more than a therapeutic process. They need to actually relate to it as a human being. And you said it exactly. When you shared your story, it had a connection. You now have a connection with the person that you shared your story with. So when you put your stories in your book, the readers have a connection with you now. You mean something to them. They've already decided they either resonate or they don't. They fit in that story somewhere or they don't. Does it make sense? So when your stories are authentic and they can feel that in the reading and the writing of them, then you have a reader for life. And you never know where it ends. I tell a story about this particular book and how you never know where that book ends up. Wherever your book, whatever it ends up being, you never know whose hands it gets into. Because most of your books might be sold on Amazon, and you never get to know who's bought those books. Unless you cleverly put a URL inside the book that connects them back to you. So there's a free giveaway inside the book or something that they connect back to you. A certain percentage of people will do that, because how many people actually finish the book? So let's hope they read the book to get to the URL to then bother to register for it. So you might get, say, 10% of the people who buy your book ever registering on your website or on your blog or on any of your contact, if it's purchased on Amazon. Okay, if it's sold through you, that's a different, you get to control that database. But if it's not, you'll never know who read that book. This book has now been out for, I don't know how many years, 6, 7 years, something like that. And I received a call last year. I put out an email to my database. And I have a very loyal database. I've had people that have been on my database now for 12, 14, 15 years. And I put an email out to my database that just offered as a 15-year anniversary. It must have been a couple of years ago, because it was my 15-year anniversary of being in business for myself rather than part-time and trying to create a business. So a full-time practice for myself. And I put out a call out for my 15-year anniversary that I was offering 2,000 and whenever it was, I can't remember what year it was, but back to prices for a 3-session coaching package. So I was going to use I offered the coaching prices that I was charging 15 years ago for just my database. And I got an email from a client who's an A-lister movie star in Hollywood. And she said, I've been following you for a long time now. A number of years ago, I bought your Unzip book because I've always struggled with emotional eating. And being in the industry that I am, and body image is really important. And I knew when I read your book one day I would work with you. She said, would you coach me? So you never know who's actually reading your book. She'd been on my database. I didn't know who she was. It could be, there's lots of people with similar names. And she'd been on my database for about 6 or 7 years, just curiously watching what I did. And because I was authentic, because I spoke my truth, because I stayed true to that, she just reached out when that offer came through and went, maybe this is an opportunity for coaching. And we ended up doing about 6 coaching packages over the next few years, where we just worked together consistently through a number of issues. It wasn't just about her acting career, but a number of very personal issues. So we don't know who our book, whose hands our book gets into. We don't know whose life it changes. And that's the key. We're not always going to know, because if it's purchased on Amazon or fishpond.com or any of the other book sites, Booktopia, etc., we're not going to know who those people are. But they're changing their life if they're reading the book. And sometimes, if you're just putting out authentic material and getting yourself connected to your audience and your database and staying connected to them, then sometimes they just reach out to you and go, you changed my life. And that feels pretty good. And I get those kind of emails quite regularly, at least a couple of times a week. Just emails from random people in the world that I would never have met before, that you've changed my life. How would that feel? It's pretty cool. And a reality hits sometimes where you think, oh my God, I really did do that. I really have had that impact. So, the stories are so important. I'm just going to go briefly into a couple of writing tools to give you as much ability to perfect what you're doing as possible without letting you be perfectionists. Grammarly.com, most of you may have heard of Grammarly. You can have the free version or you can get the pro version. I can't remember how much I pay for the pro version now. It's not overly expensive for what I get out of it. Oh my God, it's a tremendous tool. You can literally upload your document into that. It will do a scan of it, tell you how many grammatical errors are in it, how many corrections you need to do. You can even put in what level of reader you want, so whether you want it as academic or whether you want it as easy reading, and it will match it to that level. You can also check for plagiarism. Not that we're plagiarizing anything, but there's only so many words in the English language, yeah? So if we're producing words and we string a string of words together into a sentence sometimes, that sentence appears somewhere else on the internet in the same kind of structure. Well, the plagiarism tool will actually search the whole of Google instantly, well, actually more than Google, the whole of the internet, and it will tell you what the percentage of your document matches something else and send you to the link of where it matches. So it might come back with, say, 92% original text, only 8% is matching somebody else on the internet. You can go to that link and find out how it matches, what it matches, and you just change a couple of words to make it yours, and all of a sudden your document is 99% original.
But 10% is accepted, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. 10% is accepted, but the more original you can make it, SEO, search engine optimization, loves original material. So the more original you can make your documents, even blogs, I put all my blogs through Grammarly as well. The more original you can make your document, the higher you'll rank on SEO. Okay, so that's an immensely wonderful tool, basic and pro. The plagiarism test, readability score, the Gunning Fog Index. Okay, for an easy read, the average Gunning Fog Index they recommend is around an 11. And what that means is an 11-year-old grade school person could read it with ease. Okay? If you were writing an academic test, then you would want a higher readability score. But for an average book, of the kind of book that you might be writing that's for self-help, 11 or so as a readability score is what you're really aiming for. And so there's a free tool, gunningfogindex.com, that you can upload your document to, and it will give you your readability score. And this is the actual Gunning Fog Index. So 6 is for 6th grade, right up to, if you get a Gunning Fog of 11, it's a college graduate. And so what you're really aiming for a personal self-help kind of book is around that 11, high school junior or high school senior. Anywhere around there you're aiming for.
You're sending us this, right?
You can, yes, you'll get the PowerPoint. You'll get a PowerPoint as the PDF if you wish to. You don't have to have it. But most people find it very useful. So these are great tools to really help you, and I recommend you run your blogs through them. I run my blogs through Grammarly, and I run my blogs through the Gunning Fog. Yeah?
Is that a freebie or you pay as you go?
Free, completely free. So Gunning Fog is a completely free. You don't need to upgrade it to a certain level to get, the facilities. It is a free service. Adding diagrams, images and tables to your chapters is really important. We need to make the book visually attractive and actually have a visual appeal. If everything is just text, then again, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to get our reader to do? Finish the book from start to finish, yeah? So if it's visually stimulating, if it doesn't look like huge blocks of texts, you're more likely to get readers to, and of course images have to be age appropriate, okay? So say for instance Amanda's coping skills book, she's got age appropriate images coming into the book for 8 to 12-year-olds because that's her target audience, okay? Whereas somebody like Juanita will use images and tables that are appropriate for practitioners because she'll be working towards, some of her book audience will go towards practitioners and another will be the end user with addictions. So there'll be images and graphs and tables and things that are relevant to that, okay? But it just breaks up the text and allows you to help the reader on a journey through the book. Overcoming writer's block. Use your contribution statement. I promise you it will help you shift into that state. But recognising writer's block is usually just not knowing what the next step is. Same as procrastination. Solution to procrastination, write down a list of all the next possible steps and just choose one. Yep. Because that's all procrastination is your brain saying, I don't know what to do next. Writer's block is the same. I don't know what to write next. I don't know where I need to take this passage. I don't know where to take this paragraph. So write down all the possibilities of where the paragraph could go and choose one. If you get to the end of that paragraph and go, that was crap, delete it and choose a different one. Does that make sense? Roll your eyes and blink 3 times, clear your brain so that you can move on to the next topic. Getting a good editor, and there's lots of different editors. You have kind of structural editors. You have editors that look for continuity to make sure you've suggested in chapter 2 this is going to happen, and by the time you get to chapter 2, if you don't supply that, then that sort of editor is looking for have what you've suggested in the book, has that appeared in the book? Have you actually provided that? There's editors that look at your research and look at, is the research accurate, and where have you got it from, where do we need to take it to the next stage? And then, of course, there's proofreaders and things like that. So there's many different layers of editors. So you need to look at the style of writing you have, run it through Gunning Fog, run it through the Grammarly, see whether it comes together as a comfortable enough read first. Get 2 or 3 other people that you trust to read it, to give you and tell them you don't want steam blown up your you-know-what. You want honesty because this is going out to your audience. So you want to know if it doesn't read well. You want to know the truth about the context. Yep. Proofreading, the role of a proofreader is more the fine detail stuff, checking for mistakes, checking for grammar, checking for the kind of proofing to make sure that it's all in place. And formatting and layout is a whole new stage where there is software you can buy where you just upload it and it'll format to certain standards, basic standards. But I recommend, if you really want a professional book, I actually recommend a professional formatter who's used to and doing it to the New York Times kind of standards. And there are certain standards for layouts and formal, successful books. And so I usually try and do it to the New York Times standards. Okay? Any questions about what we've got so far? You're all a bit stunned. Overwhelmed? Are we going the right pace? Too much information or not enough information? Just right? Anyone else? Right? Too much? Not enough? It just helps me tailor tomorrow more. So right, cool. All right, so tomorrow we are focusing on, I'll go briefly through Olga before we leave because you'll probably meet, those of you coming to the book launch, you'll meet Dr. Olga tomorrow. I mentioned her briefly earlier. She's the psychologist who lost her husband suddenly and wrote a book called A Widow's Guide to Grief and the New Normal, which is incredible, absolutely incredible. A bit like Joy and a couple of others, I talked her into, she resisted a little bit at first, I talked her into starting a free group on Facebook, and she now has hundreds of members in that who've become a real loyal fans. And one of the things about Dr. Olga as well is she wasn't sure who to get to write the foreword, and she looked at all of these people that had lost husbands and were going through that kind of journey similarly. And she just had the courage. I suggested to her, just write this email, and I helped her structure the email. I said, just write this email to Reen Mercer. And Reen Mercer is the widow of Dean Mercer. He's the Australian Ironman who died suddenly about 2 years ago. And just out of the blue, she wrote an email to her, and Reen said, I'll send you the draft. This is the draft copy of my book. It's not even in final edit yet. I just want to know whether this will help you and whether it's too early for you, because it was within 6 months of losing Dean. And Reen you never know when it resonates with people. Reen just emailed her straight back and said, this book broke my heart and helped my heart too at the same time, because it's my story too. And it just helped her. And so she wrote the foreword for it. We helped her structure that foreword because she said, I'm not a great writer. Can you help me? So we helped her put the concept together, sent it to her. She edited it into her wording and sent it back. When we got to the book launch, Dr. Olga ran the book launch in Wollongong. And she just put it out there to ask people, and that's what you want to do. People love upcoming authors. They love book launches. And we put it out to Channel 10 newsreader. I can't remember his name. Sorry, if anyone recognises him, let me know. It's terrible. I can't believe it. Maybe I put it in the blurb there. Can't remember. Lincoln Jeffries, that's it. We put it out to him to MC the book launch. He said yes. How cool is that? And didn't charge for it. He lived in Wollongong, said more than happy to. He was based there. We put it out to, at the same time, do you know the show House Rules? Where couples come in and renovate houses, and they renovate each other's houses, not the block, but the other one, where they renovate each other's houses. There was a lady on the House Rules show. Have I put her in there? It might be. Chelsea, that's it. Her and her husband were on House Rules, and they'd actually done all the filming apart from the last 2 episodes, and her husband went rock climbing, and he had a fall and cracked his skull and died. And that was in the middle of that TV show, so the last couple of shows of this. So they had to pull the couple from the show. And the other couples had obviously spent 12 weeks with them, getting to know them, but they hadn't done their house yet. So they all volunteered, and they filmed it on the actual show where they went and did Chelsea's house with her little daughter. She had a little 1-year-old girl. And so Chelsea and her daughter, I don't know that I've got a photo there, I don't think I have. She just emailed them. They lived in Wollongong. And she emailed them bravely and just said, would you be willing to come to my book launch? Here's my book. I would love to offer this to you if it helps you any kind of solace at all. I'm a local therapist, a local psychologist in the area. I would love to help you. I do specialise in grief, and I understand your story because I'm a widow too. and they made a connection. Chelsea turned up at the book launch, brought her beautiful little daughter, and that got press. Yeah, so the media was there, away it went from there. So you just never know. What is it? It's about expertise and authority. It's about the perception of other people with a dash of courage, lots of research so you know stuff, persistence, obviously that's the message of success, so it's confidence, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of courage, and a little bit of research, and that provides your expertise. Yeah, and that's what she did. Just with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of courage, she put it out there, and she got somebody of I never know how to do that word, notoriety, to do the forward, and that then got press in the Gold Coast. It got, even though Olga is from Wollongong, it got press in other places because Reen was from that area, and then because Lincoln Humphreys was involved, we got press in the local area for that. Because the girl from House Rules was involved, we got press for that. So you just never know by putting it out there and having that little dash of courage, Juanita. Some of you, I've told a little bit about your story in your book today, and this is Juanita, who's just arrived for readiness tomorrow. So everyone say, hello, Juanita. And Juanita's going, no, don't look at me, please. Juanita's book is it a habit or an addiction? Alrighty. Your biggest takeaways before we close for the day? Just do it. Do you get it? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Start now. It is not as hard as you think. So what I want you to do before we go is start by, let me just put it back on the, here we go. I want you to all stand up. And if you don't have a working title for your 4+2 book right now, that's okay. I just want you to say the book. But if you have a working title for that book, I want you to use it. And I want you to start checking how your brain computes this statement. So I want you to say the words with me and just be curious about how your brain and your body responds. If there's any tail end voice going, no, I'm not, oh my God, or if there's confidence or if there's assurance there, just be curious and write down anything that comes up for you, because we'll work on clearing that tomorrow in the mindset stuff. Deal? So I want you to say with me, I am the author of the upcoming book, and state what it is if you know the title. Otherwise, just process it in your brain. I am the upcoming author of the book. What is it? And do it again. I am the author of the upcoming book. Once again, take a deep breath. If any tail end voice comes up, roll your eyes, blink 3 times. I can see a couple of people doing that. And then take another deep breath and start again. I am the author of the upcoming book, and state what it is. How does it feel? It feels good, doesn't it? Who had a little tail end voice going, but what if, or yeah, but... No? How cool is that? She had her little voice in her head saying, you knew it all along. But it's time to stop playing small and start playing you. How cool. So I want you to go forth tonight. Just be curious about what comes up, whether you work on that book anymore, whether you work on the structure or content. Do continue to work on your contribution statements. I promise you they will become an asset to your business as you move forward. We'll see you here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Registration's open at 8:30. If anyone does want any of the last tickets for the networking event, just see us at the back before you go. Big hugs, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thank you.